She has 2 master's degrees, and her undergraduate degree is in electrical engineering. She has an extensive background in corporate counseling, education, and private coaching and counseling. Her career also includes managing projects for IBM and being a professor at Temple University, and she's engaged in private consulting practice, coaching, and counseling people in overcoming their success barriers and achieving high levels of success. Marie?
Hi, I just want to say I'm very happy to be here today to talk to you about mentoring, which is one of my favorite topics. Actually, when I was driving here, I never even thought about this until I was driving here today, thinking, you know, I really am a professional mentor, professional coach. And what I do is, I'm an entrepreneur. I have a company. I'm a partner in a company where we do Salesforce development, and we help companies. We work with CEOs, and we work with venture capitalists, and we work with entrepreneurs in helping them to build sales forces, which is a very iffy kind of proposition. If you, we have found that that hiring one salesperson and not knowing what you're doing can cost you upwards of $150,000 in lost revenue and lost opportunity. So we help companies to prevent that from happening. And typically people come to us pulling out their hair when they're frustrated because they have they've lost a lot of money. They spent a lot of time and effort and spent money on training perhaps, and then the people fail. So what we do is we help them to avoid that. We have an evaluation tool we use to help that is second to none in the world probably. We have clients all over the world, and it's been validated to 96th percentile in picking out hidden weaknesses and self-limiting beliefs in salespeople. And then we help CEOs and entrepreneurs to put processes in place to make sure if you get a good salesperson, make sure that they flourish and they do very well. So that's my professional part of mentoring. That's what I do in my professional life. I help people to avoid serious loss. We also help companies get ready to be sold. We help them to develop their sales forces and get good sales management on board so we can help them to be sold, which we have helped a number of companies in the past few years to be sold at a very good profit with a very good sales force, with a good predictability of the sales force doing very well. So there's a valuation put onto the sales force. We help them to find what that number is. But in the course of mentoring personally, I'm the coordinator or the chairperson for the mentoring program here at Villanova in the EC department. I've been working on that for a bit since our first class of mentors seniors graduated in 2002, and now we're here this year. We'll be having our 7th class graduate. And before I start talking about mentoring, I was wondering, could you tell me, anybody have anything you hope to come away with today about mentoring before I start? Any questions you had about mentoring, or something you're hoping I was going to cover today that you would, you know, that the reason. Okay, reason.
No, he's not finished.
I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead. Okay, so you want to know how to find them and why you would have one and what they could do for you? Is that the kind of idea? Okay, so they're all good points. Okay, so why would you have a mentor and what can they do for you? Good point. Okay. Okay, so why? Why have a mentor? What reason for having one, and what can they do for you? Okay, anything else anyone was thinking about mentors? Yes?
Would there also be possibility of having
more than one mentor? Good point. Question mark, the number of mentors you would have. Okay, anyone else? Okay, got some good points up here already. Okay, well, if you think of something along the way, let me know, okay, if I don't have it up here right now, okay, but let me just say something about mentoring. Everyone here know who Tiger Woods is? Okay, okay. He has a coach or a mentor. He's a world-class golfer, and he still has a coach or a mentor to help him to get better and to stay good at his game and to keep on top of his game. So no matter how good you are or how how well you do something. You always can be better, and it's really good to have mentors. Now, why would you want to have a mentor? What would be the purpose? I mean, we're very intelligent, we're very personable, we have good ideas. Why would you want to have a mentor? What would that do for you? Yes?
That person has experience, they've done it before, so they can help you not get through the pitfalls.
Yeah, you probably get there on your own, but it's going to take longer, it's going to be more costly, it's going to be more painful. And a mentor, you're right, a mentor can help you to look like you're walking on water by telling you where the stones are in the water. Okay, that's a good analogy, I think, to it, is that, if you can look really good and do really well and look like you're doing it effortlessly, but your mentor will be telling you they're in 2 feet above, or a foot away from this spot right here, there's another stone to step on. They'll lead the way for you. They'll give you the chance. They'll help you to avoid the pitfalls. That's what I do in my business. I help a lot of companies save a lot of money and look good and do well because I've been at this for 22 years now, and I know the pitfalls of building a sales force and of managing a sales force. So I mentor people professionally in how to make that happen in their companies and do it very well. And it's very duplicatable. We've taken the mystery out of selling and building a sales force. We've helped people to find out how to find self-limiting beliefs and hidden weaknesses in salespeople and how to avoid a lot of the pitfalls. So yes, you would have someone would help you to do it and do it faster and do it more easily. I'll give you an example from the mentoring program in the electrical engineering department. One of our students is a naval personnel. He's going into the Navy when he graduates. So he wanted to go to nuclear engineering school. And there's 100 slots in the whole country. So this student he's a probably above average student. But his mentor, who I got for him, worked under Rickover in the Navy for 25 years. So his mentor told him, this is what's going to happen on the interview, and you need to go to one of your professors and go over all the questions before the interview, and you take the test. And you want to go over, and then he went over with him he rehearsed with him how to interview on this opportunity, and he got one of the 100 slots in the country. The department is thrilled, and he looks, he's elated, and he did it very easily because he had someone who went ahead of him, who had been in the Navy for 25 or 30 years, who had worked under Rickover in the nuclear part of the Navy, and he helped him to know how to do it easily, and he was a shoo-in for that opportunity because he had a mentor. So a mentor will make it easier. Now he may have gotten it on his own, but their chances were he might not have, and it would have been very difficult. He would have been nervous and scared and didn't have any support. He got a lot of support from his mentor in going through this process. Okay, so mentors are very helpful people in paving the way. Another one of our students one of my mentorees was going to work for Lockheed Martin and wanted to get into, they have a thing called a STEP program where they pay for your education and you get to go to different departments and spend a few months in different departments around the company, and it's a very selective process to get into it. So my advice to her was go find a Villanova graduate, and I helped her do this, who had been in that program and find out how they got into it. And she did, and she got in. So it makes life easier to have a mentor, someone who's gone ahead of you, who's done things that you have not experienced is a good reason why to have a mentor. Now, so I talked a little bit about what they can do for you. In the business world, if you go into a company and you have a mentor who sometimes you'll go in and you have done your master's thesis, or you did an undergraduate thesis, or you have a particular interest in a certain area of business, and there's a person up at the top of the company who has that experience or that interest, and they find out that you have that interest from you talking to people in the company. That person may take you under their wing and help you to go up in the ranks in the company. I know people that this has happened, especially my partner, that happened to him, that by the time he was 31, he was a vice president of of projects, and he was became vice president of finance, and he was very young to have had this happen because he was interested in computers, and people found that out in the company when he first got there. It was a civil engineering firm. One of the senior vice presidents took him under his wing and mentored him for the first 5 to 10 years of his career. And then the president of the company found out about him and then mentored him further. So mentoring can help you in a company. It also can help you if you're an entrepreneur, or if you're trying to get a patent, to find someone who has been through the process ahead of you, who would mentor you in that process, so to avoid the pitfalls and the things that could happen that would cost you a lot of money, a lot of time. Today you're getting some mentoring about non-disclosures and about intellectual property, protecting your intellectual property, and these are all important things to know. Having been in business myself and had to deal with intellectual property issues and having to deal with non-competes and non-disclosure agreements, I've been through. So if someone were to come to me and ask me about that stuff, I've been through the ropes of those situations. Okay, so mentors will help you to avoid pitfalls, and they will help you to grow your career more quickly and more easily, help you to acquire a certain opportunity, like our Navy guy that wanted to be in nuclear engineering, help them to get there more quickly. Okay, so number of mentors, I think that the number isn't as important as it is what is it you're trying to accomplish, and maybe that one person that you find can encompass all of what you're trying to accomplish, or maybe you might need 2 mentors. Maybe you need someone who is a lawyer and someone who's an engineer, or someone who's a lawyer and someone who's an entrepreneur, or maybe the person who's the engineer is also an entrepreneur. It could be, it depends on what you're trying to accomplish and what kind of experiences you're hoping that mentor will have for you that can help you along the way. It really helps. So we're finding it more and more in our mentoring program here at Villanova with the electrical and computer engineering students that, that we have a network of engineers and entrepreneurs out there that are mentors who we actually help each other to help the students. So if someone has a student we had one student last year, I think the year before, he was going to be going to he had some kind of position lined up he knew he was going to do for 4 years, and all of a sudden at the end it fell through. So we mentors got together and talked, and we said, okay, what can we do to help the student to find an opportunity? And we did. We found interviewing opportunities, and it was like May of his senior year when he found out that this opportunity had fallen through. So we mentors, especially here at Villanova, we want to help the students. We volunteer to do it. And most mentors out there, why would someone want to be a mentor? Did anyone think of that? Why they'd want to be a mentor? We have why would you want a mentor? Why would someone want to be a mentor? There's a lot of good mentors out there that do it. We have mentors in the engineering program that do it for, as a volunteer, on a voluntary basis. Why would someone want to do that? Yes?
That person may have experienced their own pitfalls and want to make it easier for somebody else.
They want to help somebody else. Anyone else have an idea? Yes?
Probably learn too.
They learn too. We were learning so much in the mentoring program, and we learn from the business I do. We learn so much all the time. We're actually writing a book right now about Salesforce development, and we're constantly learning and updating the book, and we've been updating our training over the years and updating our tools and everything. So every time we talk to someone or help someone, we learn something. Yes, it's a good point. And that, we want to help them to avoid the pitfalls. But why would someone volunteer their time and be a mentor? They're all good reasons, but there's one. It has to do with the life cycle. When you get to be older and you've had your successes, what do you want to do? You want to give back. And that's why our mentors in our engineering program are very conscientious, very excited about being mentors, and want to do it time over and over again. I have some mentors been with me for 7 years now, and they're starting their 7th year this fall of being mentors because they have an opportunity to give back. Yes? Okay. Anybody have any other questions? Something else? Yes?
Don't you think mentorship is a core competency that everybody has to have?
Not really, no.
You know, in a company,
In a company, you would hope that all the managers and all the and people would want to mentor. Yes, but it's a very I find some people are very skilled at it, and some people are learning through the process, and some people they're not they don't have all the skills, and it depends.
I've been in 2 companies where mentoring as a core competency and as a behavior
Mm-hmm.
was included in objectives.
Well, see, that's the culture of that company, and that's really great. And I worked for IBM, and I sold for them, and I did design for them and managed projects for them, and I found that was a part of their culture. I mean, you had a hard time to go in IBM and find a bad manager. But some companies, there's other things that are priorities. It's not necessarily part of the culture.
But then you wouldn't want to work for that company.
Yeah, but some people coming out of school, they just, they see a company and they want to go there, and they go. And, they find it, sometimes they learn the hard way. Yeah. It's unfortunate. It's an emotional skill. It's a way of being able to connect, being able to, to make a real deep connection with someone and caring about them. You would hope that everybody would do it, but not everyone has the skills.
So in terms of I make you look good, you make me look good, that idea doesn't get to a lot of people.
You mean in management? Yeah, management is a little different because in management, I would hope it would be a part of that. But in mentoring is like an offline kind of a process where it's not as vulnerable as being in a managed person with a manager. You'd hope that would be a part of the management process. But mentoring is something that's more, in companies, is typically more informal and more. It goes across management lines. It's not necessarily the direct line in a management process that you would find in companies. It's sometimes it is. Sometimes if you're lucky enough to have that a part of your management, the person that's managing you is a part of the process, that's great. But sometimes you have to go and find your own mentor within the company.
I think mentorship should replace performance evaluation.
I'm sorry?
I don't think there should ever be a performance evaluation.
Oh, I agree. But that's the ideal world, and that would be really nice. I agree with you.
But
Yeah.
I think it's that way. And for example, your example of IBM. I really admire the people that work in that company because they're teams.
Oh yeah, it's a great company to work for. Yes, I've been in a lot of companies in the past 22 years, and some of them are like that, and some of them I help them to develop that, but it's not necessarily there automatically. And now I'm going to
Turn it over
to Joe McCullen.
And we
And-
should have time at the end for some questions. If you have some questions for Marie, write them down now so you don't forget them for.
Okay, and Joe,
when-
Joe wanted me to say that he works with boards of directors and with entrepreneurs and mentoring. Okay, and also he's a venture capitalist. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I'll just give you a little bit more spiel on Joe also. He's been the chairman of McCullen Capital, which is a Boston-based firm whose portfolio consists of both privately and publicly held companies and real estate. For the past 18 years before he had started with that, Joe was a managing director of 2 venture capital firms, J.H. Whitney and One Liberty Ventures. His focus was on early-stage technology companies, including medical devices, drugs, information technology, and communications, where he has been acknowledged as one of the leading venture capitalists. Joe also is a Villanova graduate. Hi.
Joe McCullen, the one and only, thank God. I am really happy to be here today. I'm a Villanova grad, and I grew up here. My mind was open, my eyes were open. So, like Bill just said a few minutes ago, some people like to give back. That's what I'm trying to do today. And I hope that whatever I have to say is helpful. My role here today, as I understand it, is to comment on mentoring that happens if you're an entrepreneur and people get involved with capital. And you eventually have a board of directors. They're going to be involved. You can call it mentoring, you can call it kibitzing, But it's important for the entrepreneur, it's what my thesis is today, that they understand that you're going to get mentoring whether you like it or not. That's what's going to happen when you get other people's money. You know, I think there's a saying here that no one can fly to their maximum height with their own wings. So mentoring now is, which we were touching on with Marie, is something that would be very good to do for others whenever you can. And it's good to receive most of the time if it's from the right person. I personally believe, or at least as I'm defining today, that it takes two to tango, and it also takes at least two to mentor. Otherwise, and I'm not talking about advice, the occasional advice, what I'm trying to talk about today is somebody who is with you on very, very important part of your life or your business and is working for you, wants to succeed. That's my definition of mentoring here. And I personally believe that there's some people who have no capability, none, zero, of mentoring. And there's some people who have the capability, but they don't really have the interest. I think you know those people. And the reverse is true. There are some people who can't be mentored, in my view. They just, either they know it all, they don't have the interest. So the same thing, it's the other side of the coin. So in many ways, mentoring, as I'm using it, as I talk to you further, is situational, it's circumstantial. I think in the real world, what I'd like to think anyway, is that a mentoring relationship is just that. It's a relationship. And it's somewhat analogous, I think, to falling in love. It's consensual. Both parties want something good out of it. I wouldn't take that analogy too far, but there are certainly similarities to it. It should be natural. It should be open, forthright. It should be shared objectives, understanding of what the need is on both sides, certain amount of intensity and seriousness to it. It's not just, you know, do you want a ham sandwich, or do you want something lighter because maybe you don't want to lose weight? I mean, that's not what I'm talking about. Now, what happens here is if you're an entrepreneur and you take money from someone, you're taking risk capital, that injects, in my view, a certain amount of complexity and even confusion into the relationship, which is required in mentoring. He said it was both sides here, both the investor, director, and the entrepreneur have to do things that make the mentoring successful. Have to do it. They have to be aware of it. The entrepreneur has to understand they're going to get mentoring whether they like it or not. Somebody who is an investor can be calling it mentoring, but if you as the entrepreneur don't believe it's mentoring, it's not. You can have, like, there's a commercial out, you've seen it, Mr. Mop. You can get in, I don't know whether you've seen it, but you get somebody who wants to be involved. It's the Mop versus the new Swifter. That's the Mop is looking to get in, to mentor, to be good to the user, but Swifter's already there. It's so the consumer isn't going to be involved. So when you're in an entrepreneurial relationship, what I can say is caution. You're about to enter a muddled mentoring zone. You know, you've seen O'Reilly, that's what's going to happen. Risk capital and board governance, which come along with venture capital, will bring can bring. It can bring greed, right? It can bring self-interest. It can breed split loyalties. You as an entrepreneur may want something. The investor may want something else. There's not a commonality. It can be short-sightedness. The investor's looking for a short-term return. The entrepreneur is looking to build a business that will be longer term. These are things that, you know, you have to understand in any sort of relationship where there's money coming in and somebody's going to be involved, different objectives. The amount of intensity and seriousness is going to be different. So I think that, you know, people need to understand that. I think that it's kind of a mixed blessing here. It's a mixed bag. And what you have to do, in my opinion, is define it beforehand. Right, I've been a venture capitalist for, you know, I think Thomas Edison was around trying to get money. But the thing is here, what you have to do is define I'm assuming all of you people are interested in being entrepreneurs or are entrepreneurs today. You're going to be taking money from people. Define the relationship early. Understand who the other person is, what they want. As a venture capitalist, one of the things that I always do is I judge the person. First thing, and you read it in books all the time. Yes, I'm interested in the technology and the market and how you're going to make money and those things, but it's the person. And one of the things is, can I work with this person? Can I really work? Do I trust them? Do I suspect that they will trust me? Is it that sort of thing? Get it in your own mind early. Because once the money is passed, things are pretty well set. And what happens too is the amount of money that you take, the increased involvement that you're going to get. I'm not going to call it mentoring, it's involvement. That's going to happen. And the more investors that you have, the more involvement you're going to have. So, but if you take it as an opportunity to, yes, I can learn from somebody, not just the money that I'm taking, somebody's on my side, that's good. I put a little chart in the paper that I have given you. And I'm not a pedagogue or have not written any sort of books or anything, so the chart really is may not be clear. But what I tried to do is take, where do you get money from? Friends and family. You can get them from so-called angels, so-called, and you can get them from so-called professional venture capitalists. That's an oxymoron. And one of the things that I feel is that as you go up the scale, if you will, from friends and family to the venture capitalists, the amount of involvement increases. Okay? I could have put on the left-hand axis there dumbness and have that go in the opposite direction from what I'm talking about involvement on the right-hand side. And that is, it goes from 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, all the way down. Or it goes the other way. It goes from 10 up to 1. And I'm talking about dumbness. I really mean ignorance about business and where you're going to be getting, you know, good advice. Friends and family they want to be involved in a way which I'll talk about in a minute. But the chances are that their ability to help, to provide guidance, to mentor is low. So that's the dumbness factor increases. The involvement factor increases the other way as you go to venture capitalists. Let's touch a little bit on kind of each, where you get the money from and capital and what kind of happens. With friends and family, there's usually less negotiating at the start. And that's what happens, and have to watch that and I'll comment. There's usually, as I said, less involvement in the business. But usually friends and family get very nervous. Maybe they're offering $25,000, $50,000, which is serious money to most people. So they're nervous. They're worried. You know, what is Jim gonna do with my $25,000? So it's a breeding ground right there for, in the future, of having feelings hurt, broken relationships, and I have seen that. So what do? You mentor the other way. You really make sure that friends and family understand what it is they're doing, what the risks are, and don't sugarcoat it. Don't be saying, this is going to be wonderful. I am going to make you a whole lot of money on this. You have to be very, very serious and very honest. You have to communicate the terms. Friends and family don't usually understand the terms. You're taking their money. What are the terms? What are the expectations? Mom, thank you for the $25,000. I'm going to make this $50,000. What happens? Angels come in, venture capitalists come in, and Mom thought that she had 10% of your company, and all of a sudden, comes in the angels, comes in the venture capitalists, and there's dilution. Mom never heard of dilution. What are you doing to me, Jimmy? What are you doing? In fact, it's even worse, because not only is there more stock in there, and her ownership is diluted, she thought that she was paying, because you told her she was paying $2 a share. But these other guys that are coming in later, what's happening? They're only paying $1 a share. So right away, her $25,000 is less than half of that, and then you cut the dilution. Mom's hurting. Mom has to understand that right from the beginning. What's going to happen? The return is going to be longer term if it's a startup company. I would also strongly suggest that you get legal advice to start when you're dealing with friends and family. Have a lawyer, and not just somebody who is a friend of the family who has a real estate practice. Somebody who understands what it takes to build a business and what happens when money comes in, so that outsider, that attorney, can explain some of the terms. During the investment, very, very important, I believe, is that they understand what their rights are, but beyond that, by rights, they should get reports, more than annual reports. They should be getting quarterly reports at least. Getting that. Make sure that you keep the people informed on progress and problems. Okay, I'll try to cover angels and venture capitalists at the same time. And not all investors are created equal either. You have to understand that. In fact, in my view, I mean, angels are very good people. They go into these investments for a whole host of reasons, but usually they are not sophisticated. Hate that word, but they don't fully understand the financial aspects of it and what really happens when money comes in and then additional money is going in. And I have seen a lot over the years where they are distressed when the venture capitalists come in. They didn't anticipate. Angels can be very good many times because they've got some operating experience. And it's a chance, perhaps, of mentoring. Perhaps of mentoring. You're going to get their involvement, whether you like it or not. So beforehand, as I think I said before, make sure they understand it. Make sure their attorney's involved. Make sure that you understand now, because attorneys are going to be much more skilled at structuring the company, of what the rights are, what type of equity. You know, is it common stock? Is it preferred? Is it straight preferred? Is it participating preferred? Entrepreneurs many times don't understand that. Understand it. The angel may or may not, the venture capitalist surely does, because the impact on you as the entrepreneur and the early investors are significant. You have to understand such things as, the liquidation dates, the investment rights, about dilution and the different types of dilution, voting rights, drag-along rights, board rights, observer rights, and so on. All of those have to be discussed and codified right from the start. With venture capitalists, you need to know the firm. There are good firms and not so good firms. So know the firm, check the firm out, know who it is within the firm that you're dealing with. Many times with a larger firm, you may see a general partner who's usually supposed to be somebody experienced in the business. You may see a managing general partner. You wind up with an associate. Can that associate mentor? My point is, you're going to get mentoring now. You're going to get mentoring, whether you like it or not. And so who is it you're dealing with? And the last point is, check them out. They're going to be doing research on you, doing reference checks as you ask them for money. You do the same. Can you really work with these people? As I said earlier, I always say, can I work well with the people? And I'll just give you a very quick story. Several years ago, there was a fellow who was getting out of the Harvard Business School. He had wrote his thesis on delivering health care to nursing homes. He had been a physician before, a surgeon. He's very, very bright, seemed personable. I thought we had trust. He was coupled with a guy who had a good business background in operations. I thought, okay, I'm ready to put money in after doing all the diligence on the markets, of course. 2 weeks before closure, 5 days before closure, I had a call from the operating guy, his partner, who said, I've left the company. What? Yeah, I left 2 weeks ago. What did that tell me? I was not told by the CEO, this doctor, this entrepreneur, this visionary. Somewhere along the line, he didn't trust me. He didn't trust me to tell me. And I could no longer trust him. So the deal was off. Deal was off. So you have to be in a position where you have mutual trust right from the start. And we're 2 minutes. All right. The takeaway then for the entrepreneur is only take capital from people that you respect, and that respect has to be mutual. People, of course, who have high ethical standards, are honest, straightforward, and are accessible, have a compatible personality to you, that you can just feel at home with them, and vice versa. And importantly, who understand your type of business. It's including such things that maybe you haven't gotten into as yet. You don't know. The competition, the distribution systems, the regulatory environment. You have to make sure that you have in your investor group people who can help that. So they'll be involved because they're taking your money, but you want people that you can learn from. In other words, never, ever, ever take dumb money. Dumb money, these people can't mentor. That's dumb money. They may try, but if you're not in a position to say, I'm taking information from people who really know, if there's not that level that you feel, these people can help you. Don't take the money. Also, it was touched on, I think, this morning. I think it's very good. You're going to get the involvement from investors and board members, but you also should be cultivating mentors outside the company. I think that is essential, outside of the company, and maybe who they are is up to the individual. You may find it back a former professor, for example, somebody who you could really talk to about whether it's the technology or if they have the business experience, but you can go to them. It's very, very good to have that. You'll be selecting boards And boards, one of the main roles, I think if you read the books on the role of the board of directors, one of the first things they'll say is advise and assist the CEO. So right away, they're saying that's mentoring. That's mentoring, right? And do you want that mentoring from what the people who are on the board? So what you have to do, you have to make sure that your board is structured in a certain way that not only do you like and respect the people and they can provide something, but there's the breadth of experience on the board. So know what your business is. Do you want to make sure you have you're going to get the investors, and the investors may be a funny-looking guy like me who never ran a company at all, but I know the financial aspects of it. And yes, to be a good venture capitalist, and I think I am, help people, mentor, no question about that. But you want other people on the board who understand the competitive situation, the regulatory involvement. Don't have too big of a board. It's the next takeaway of this. But the core group that is going to work with you on the essential functions of the business. People who have the ability to give you what you need. People who want you to be successful and really want this company succeed, not just because they have their money in it. A little trick there, and not all venture capitalists can do it. And the last thing I'll say, because I've run out of time, when you are successful in your endeavor, pass your experience on, because good people can benefit, I'm sure. Longfellow argued, give what you have to someone, it may be better than you think. So thank you.
I'd like to ask Rita to come back up and if there's any questions from either of our speakers. The session's over at noon, but we're going to lunch, so I think we can easily, go 5 to 10 minutes into lunch because the next session doesn't start till 1 o'clock, so we have plenty of time. Questions? I have a lot of questions. How do you find a mentor? I know you said the students find a mentor because they know that you do mentoring in ECE and they'll go to you and then you find mentors
Right.
for them.
Right.
If they don't have somebody like you, or if somebody doesn't find out about you, like you, the example in industry, the CEO finds out that you have the same interest. How do you find a mentor?
Well, I think in industry, if you have an opportunity, say for example, they're looking for someone to volunteer to be on a certain committee, or they're setting up a group that's going to investigate a certain type of technology, for example. If you put yourself in that group with other people in other departments, you start to network, and networking really helps to find mentors. Because if you're out there, if you're in the company, you'll find people that have similar interests, or they hear that you did a really good job on a certain technology investigation. They may make it up to the vice president or president level, and then you may find someone coming to you and being interested in you. Or networking in the world. Networking, we have found, this is my partner Dan Caramanico, and we have found mentors throughout our lives in the world, just talking to people and letting people know what we're interested in, what we're doing. We have a network around the country right now of about 150 people who do Salesforce development, and we meet with them once a year, and then through them we find other opportunities or other people that have expertise in different areas that we would need some help with, and we go to them and we talk to them. We're constantly still finding mentors, and it's out there talking and networking with people and telling people what you're interested in, what you're thinking about doing, and someone will say, hey, I know a guy who could help you with that, or I know someone that you might want to talk to. Here's their number. Why don't you give them a call, and I'll tell him to give you a call. And it's just a networking. Networking helps a lot. In a company, taking advantage of any opportunity in a company, they're looking for someone to do a little bit of extra work and getting yourself known in the company and what your interests are, and then and that you have your can-do attitude. You're a person who's easy to work with as a team member, and that could bring mentors to you just in that experience.
And when, as a lot of these are students and they're young, do they say to someone, would you please mentor me? I mean, is it actually verbalized?
Well, you can do that. If sometimes you'll get it as what Joe was talking about today is like, can you trust the person? Do you feel good in their presence? Do you feel like you have a lot of commonality? You both went to Villanova. You're both interested in technology. You sit down, maybe have lunch, you talk, starting to feel good about the person. You could ask them if you feel like that's someone you want to mentor. You could ask them, sure, I really enjoy this. Could we meet once a month like this? And would you be willing to help me out? Because I think I can learn some things from you.
And I'd ask Joe the same kind of question. How do you can add to that, and then I'll come back to my question.
But what I was going to say is, I think entrepreneurs should have a temerity is the polite word, to be able to say, I can get information from this person. I can benefit from meeting this person and figure out a way to get to that person. There's a fellow by the name of David Shaw that I backed years ago in a veterinary products company. Now, he really had temerity. He would pick up the phone himself cold and reach people. And I was always amazed that he felt the confidence to do it. But I remember he called the senior vice president for research and development at IBM and got a meeting. It was, and that meeting, David was very sure what he wanted from the person, and it was information about how you build an R&D effort and what goes into it. So David was well prepared. And David then liked the person liked him, and David used him for years as a mentor, a real mentor on R&D type projects. And I know another person who went to see the then Secretary of the Treasury. He got in to see on economic information and was invited back. And then the Secretary of the Treasury at the time asked the man to dinner, brought his own wife, and so that relationship became like a father and a son. So you have to be prepared.
You have to be prepared. Yeah, it really helps to, if you're interested in something and you work at it and I always say that there's no luck out there. It's opportunity meeting hard work and determination and knowledge. And if you're pursuing what you're interested in, you're studying it, you know about it, you know where you want to go, and you present yourself to someone, and that will develop into an opportunity for you. It's amazing how people are very acceptable, and people at higher levels are easier to talk to. Actually, people at lower levels are less protective. They're much more willing to help, and they're much more fun to talk to, and they're willing to help you out. I find it's so easy to sell at a higher level in a company. We do a lot of selling and we go into higher levels, and it's much easier up there than it is down below. It's not as scary up there as you would think. There's a lot of good people up there because they're good people because they got up there because they're good people.
Question?
Is there any life cycle, like you network, you find a mentor, you taking advice, and what happens after that?
Everybody's different, I think, and it varies. You may find a mentor early on and use that mentor for 10 years, then maybe you might decide to go in a different direction, and the mentor may suggest someone that you could talk to and move on. And you always need to be networking. We're talking about networking at lunch, and you always need to be networking.
I was going to just say that I think I'm going to ask Marie to tell you that you can dismiss because Marie and her partner are actually going to talk about networking during lunch, so she might have to get down to get started. But I had one more question for Joe. How do you find the angel investor or that person who is going to be a different kind of mentor, but that you really need? How do you find the right person? I mean, how do you find them to begin with? And then I know you said you build a relationship.
Well, there are angel networks. In fact, there are a group of angels in every large city, and I know Philadelphia has some. They band together. Usually they're successful. They have a capital that they want to invest in young companies. So they band themselves together. They can be found easily, I think, on the internet or by talking to people of where the angel communities are. Sometimes they're one-off people. They have a little bit of money. And you just have to get to that by networking. I will again caution. I'm not a fan of most angels. Not because they're not good people, but it's because they bring with their capital and very narrow perspective, and they're going to be involved. And so all the things I said about making sure that you can work with the person, make sure that the angel, you can do that, but also is broad enough to be a mentor, because 9 chances out of 10, there'll be a mentor whether you like it or not. what else when I try to help?
And Joe will be here through the rest of the day, and I hope everybody joins us for the networking session. There's two more, after lunch, there are two more, like breakout, concurrent sessions, and then after that is networking. Actually, Will, who you saw this morning at the, kickoff, he's going to do a wrap-up